Now, the Justice and Correctional Services Ministry says a request by the UAE to resubmit an extradition application for the Gupta brothers is stalling the process. Earlier this year, the brothers were set free after a failed extradition attempt. Interpol placed Rajesh and Atul Gupta on its most wanted list, and the brothers were arrested by Dubai police in June last year. You might remember they wanted in South Africa for allegedly looting billions of rand linked to state capture. At the same time, the Justice Department has reiterated that the extradition process for controversial Pastor Shepard Bushiri is on track. Let's get you an update on all these developments for you now. Bring in Justice Minister Ronald Lamola, who joins us via our video link this Friday morning. And Minister, it's lovely to see you. Thanks as always for making time for us here on Newzroom Afrika. Let's begin with the Gupta brothers. I mean, according to a statement that was released from your department, I think it was yesterday, you mentioned that the UAE is essentially asking you to lodge a fresh request, a fresh extradition request for the Gupta brothers. However, the first one failed even though you followed the advice of UAE officials. I suppose the obvious question is, how do we know that this one will succeed?
Indeed, that is the challenge we currently face with, because immediately after the first one, we dispatched a non-verbal or communicate to the UAE authorities asking various questions with the hope that they will provide us clarity with regards to the first request to enable us to resubmit as per their advice. And that has been followed by various follow-up non-verbals requesting them to answer to those questions which have not yet been answered up to this date. And it is against this background that we have again dispatched another one, saying to them, indeed, the authorities in South Africa, the NPA, stand ready to send a fresh application. But those questions must be answered first so that we know where the first one went wrong, because according to us, it was submitted in line with their advices and in compliance with the UAE laws and the authorities having satisfied the submission. So it is important for us to get that clarity so that by the time our authorities here in South Africa resubmit, it is in compliance with their laws and also in compliance with their advice.
Right.
So that is where the process is stalling. Right.
And so to be clear, even as you and I speak today, you actually still don't know what went wrong with that first application that you made.
Yes, except the court judgment that stated a number of reasons which we have already, in terms of our questions, asked them, because all those issues that have been stated them, we had done them in line with the advice of those authorities.
Yeah. Are you able to take us, Minister, through some of the questions that you had, at least the ones that we'll understand, because I imagine the process can get quite complex. What, insofar as you're concerned, are the big sticking issues that prevent you from confidently going ahead with the second application?
Yeah, firstly, I may not be able to go into details with all of them because of the confidential nature of the engagement. But there is one which I think is in the public domain. One of the charges or the requests that our authorities had made related to money laundering. And in terms of the extradition treaty or agreement between South Africa and the UAE, is that if the competent authority of either of the two countries refuse a request in line with that, they must therefore prosecute in their own country. So obviously the question that will arise, because it was not accepted, our request, is whether they are being prosecuted for money laundering in the UAE or not. So that our authorities, as and when they request, they must request in line with what the authorities could be doing. And there is also a number of such kind of questions that are in the minds of our authorities, which have been properly dispatched and sent to the UAE for responses, so that we don't have duplication. No, we have got a process that will not be in line with their laws.
Yeah. In the statement that I referenced earlier, you speak of two meetings. One, or both of them actually took place in June, but one was a physical meeting, I understand, and you were present there, and the other one was virtual. In the virtual one, you were asked to sometimes resubmit letters that you've already submitted because they wanted in Arabic, essentially. And I don't know, from the outside, it almost seems to me that, there's this constant back and forth. The UAE officials are not responding timeously. And sometimes it takes South African officials to follow up multiple times before different steps can essentially be reached. What's your reading of just how officials in the UAE are responding to this matter? I mean, are you getting a sense that it shares the equal amount of urgency, for lack of a better term, that we certainly see it here in South Africa?
Yes, and that is what we believe frustrated the first process. And that's why you'll remember we cited the UN Convention that the minor technicalities cannot be relied upon to be the basis of denying an extradition request. So it remains our view that in line with the Extradition Act and the treaty which we have with the UAE, the requested state has got an obligation to respond and to do so timeously and to be actively helping with the process. And in this regard, we have dispatched even our ambassador in the UAE on several occasions, even after this decision, with the hope to get responses, and which we have said we have not yet received those responses. And it is in line even in this first one. This is exactly what was happening, and it is for that reason that we have decided that on many of these requests, we will update the South African nation, because when we do not update the nation, an impression is created that we are not following up on the matter, no, we are not following the law in that country, which we are doing. And I can assure South Africans that we are doing so religiously and diligently, and our authorities are on working on this matter in line with the extradition treaty, which we believe the requested state has an obligation to honor.
Yeah, I hear your response, Minister, and I'm sympathetic to your decision to be diplomatic, so to speak. I mean, part of the requirements you spoke about is around both parties responding timeously. I think it's fair to say that the UAE has dropped the ball insofar as that is concerned.
Now, obviously, from our side, we have to work in terms of the four corners of the extradition agreement or treaty, which we are following. And at this stage, we are saying we have not yet received the responses to the questions that were sent, which will enable our authorities to submit an extradition request, which is in compliance with the authorities and the laws of the UAE, because we believe that is very important, that by the time we submit, the authorities in the UAE must have confirmed and certified that it is indeed as per their requirements and in line with their laws.
So yet again, South Africa is finding itself in a position where it has to wait. I shudder at the thought of how long you're willing to wait, Minister, before, quite frankly, the wait appears as justice denied or deferred, as some people might say. The question is, what happens next, right? Because you can only follow up so many times, and you can only wait so long before, I imagine, you also need to start exploring other avenues.
Yeah, obviously, we are already exploring other avenues in line with the UN Convention, which we are not at privy to say to the public, but we are looking at all the avenues in terms of the UN Convention, what else could be exploited and so forth. But at this stage, we want to satisfy ourselves with the processes with regards to the UAE, because that is the last country of sight of the fugitives that the South African government is looking for. And by the time you deal with the convention of the UN, you must be able to demonstrate that you have done everything possible and necessary to comply with the extradition treaty between the two countries. Yeah.
With the time we have left, Minister, it's worth touching on the issue around Shepard and Mary Bushiri. That's the other update you've given us in that statement. Where, quite frankly, you mentioned that, the extradition request is on track. What does that mean around when we can expect the Bushiris in this country for trial?
Yes, and you will have seen also there that there is a decision by the magistrate of Malawi. The matter is indeed going through the court processes of Malawi, where we have scored significant victories. But there's also been minor setbacks in some of the challenges that the Bushiris have applied on this matter, where they are raising all points in liminis. But the authorities in Malawi, the prosecuting authorities, have been able to withstand and deal with these matters. And the latest ruling by the magistrate is that we need to certify, our authorities need to certify the documents in line with the Extradition Act of Malawi, which they are currently working on. And our authorities have been to Malawi on several occasions, and they will be going back again on the 10th of October, where we believe that the matter should be able to proceed. And the NPA and the investigating officers of the matter will be called upon to the stand to testify, barring any further points in limina that are being raised to obfuscate and to delay the matter by the Bushiris. But we remain ready, and our authorities, as and when they are required to go to Malawi, they will be there on the 10th of October to testify.
I suppose it's difficult to say then when you expect the Bushiris to be the side, if everything goes as planned.
Yes, it is indeed difficult, because you really cannot predict the court processes in terms of time frames. Even if the matter is yet, it is in the discretion of the magistrate or the judge to decide the matter at a particular point, and also it is also at the discretion of the litigants whether they appeal or not. So all those factors being factored in, it makes it impossible to predict. But what we can assure South Africans is that we will follow the matter through up until the highest court of Malawi, and we remain confident that our request is in compliance with the Extradition Act of Malawi, in line with the advices that we are receiving and the good cooperation we are receiving from the authorities of Malawi. We are able to submit and comply with their laws, and hence you will have seen that we have scored significant victories in their courts, where we also won and succeeded in their courts of appeal. So we believe that we will follow through the matter up until the end, and we believe at the end they will definitely come back to our country to account for the matters that the authorities here, the NPA and the SAPS, want them to account for in South Africa.
All right. These are important stories, and we appreciate you giving us this update. Ronald Lamola is, of course, the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. Thank you very much indeed.